Hi everyone, Sherry Miller here again today, and I want to talk again about leadership and the riots in Minnesota and offer some perspective on what local people in that area can be doing. Right now, finally, some leadership people. Hello, Alicia. Nice to see you. There's finally some high-level leadership that came into the epicenter of this problem, and they're dealing with the most dangerous areas, and that is really good. And the general public really needs to stay away from those areas and not get involved in leadership there, because there are many different styles of leadership that are needed now that this has blown up into huge proportions. Initially, it all would have been, one type of leadership, and this could have been handled, very differently and never blown up. But once it has blown up, now you need different styles of leadership. So we have very rightfully authoritative leadership in the heart of the most dangerous areas. But right now, I want to look at what is the best thing for everyone else to be doing, because that's not the only thing that needs to happen. And I want to look at this from the perspective of the energetics as I look at everything. Energetics applies to everything in life: dogs, horses, and people, and corporate world, and wars, and everything else. It's all how energy flows. And so, as someone, I've never been directly in that kind of scenario, but I have certainly been in very high energy situations that were dangerous, at least temporarily. So I can relate to that experience, and I understand the energetics going on. It's not been as prolonged or as big as this, but it's the same energetics, just on a smaller scale. And so I've been there with animals, and I've been there with people. And you really have both things going on. The worst offenders of the damage and destruction right now are really behaving, I was going to say like animals, but they're actually far worse than animals. But they're behaving like animals in a very fearful state. You can't, negotiate with them or reason with them. So there's a lot of just raw energy, raw power there. That really requires a lot of training and a lot of understanding to work safely around. But when you look at energetics, you're going to have, the epicenter, the really high energy place, but there's going to be kind of rings around it that are lower and lower and lower energy. And we need leadership all the way out across. From where it's very low energy to higher and higher and higher. And the right people will step up in those areas. The people who have the capacity to flow that level of energy will step up into the level that they need to be. But we need leaders across all of those places. And what people who aren't highly trained in that can and should do, and they won't interfere at all with, the police and the military and everybody else, is provide extreme grounding everywhere that you go. Be that grounded person, because grounding allows other people's energy to flow through you to ground when they can't ground themselves. And the biggest asset that any leader has is the ability to stay grounded no matter what is going on. Through that grounding, we can take in the right information, we can take the right actions, because you're not operating from a place of fear and protection. You're operating from a place of openness, and you can take in all the data, and you can make the right decisions and take the right actions. So grounding is the single most important thing to happen. And this is something that all of us can provide everywhere that we are. So the energy, there's a lot of people, especially as you go in closer to it, there's a lot of people that are losing their grounding because of, I think there's a core group of people that's very small that is, way out of control. But then they kind of bring in a lot of people around them that are just riding on that energy. Their energy goes up, and they don't know what to do with it, and then it kind of, it's jittery, and a lot of bad things happen. And those are the people that, from a safe, if you're out far enough, you can help. Because the fewer of those people that there are, the less overall energy in the system that there is feeding the epicenter. The people in the epicenter are not, the core small group of people who it seems may not even be from Minnesota, which is not surprising. That core group of people they have an addiction to energy, to the jolt of energy. And with energy, there's relief, release, and resolve. That's a tongue twister to say. And a lot of people seek relief, which gets to be an addictive cycle. So relief would be, hitting things and throwing things and starting things on fire. And it's this jolt of energy out of you. And it feels good for a second, but it didn't resolve anything. And it actually increased the energy in the scenario. So now you have more energy running through you. So now you need another jolt. And it's just an addictive cycle. It's literally an addiction. It's just like drugs. It's the same thing. They need more and they need more and they need more. And that's what you're seeing right now. And other people that unwittingly get sucked into that help provide the energy necessary to keep giving them that high. And so the more that we can do, starting on the outskirts and then moving in closer and closer and closer as we build a more solid base, the more that we can do to ground energy, to flow it to ground, the less power that they have overall. And even bigger than that, the more people we get on the bandwagon of grounded energy, the more that they can stand up and say, in a way that's reasonably safe. I mean, there's always some risk in life. Don't be crazy and walk into the middle of it and stare one of these guys in the eyes and say this. But in the people, in the surrounding community, you can say, not on my watch. This stuff isn't going to happen. Violence is not okay by anybody. It's not just the police that shouldn't do it. Nobody should. And that's why it's kind of suspicious that these people may not be, black people from Minnesota. I don't think is what's causing this, because they would be hurting their own people. This is somebody else taking advantage of the situation. And all of us, people of all colors right now, need to stand up together and say, not on our turf, not on our watch. This is not going to happen. But we need to say it not from a place of fear and fighting, because they will win. They're better at that. They're addicted. They're on a high, and they're better at that, and they will win. We need to do it from a place of energy is always being grounded. We're flowing to ground. We're flowing to ground. And we are not ever going to stop flowing to ground. And we're going to keep flowing that to ground until they have nothing left to work with. And we need to stand in that place. Absolutely. We need to know who we are, what we stand for, and never be knocked off balance within that context, no matter what is going on around. And for some people, that can take so many different forms. For some people, it can be just being, just be that person, just be grounded and exist in that area. That in and of itself helps people feel it, people notice it. For other people, it can be talking to people that are close to them, talking them out of the high of that and into, let's take this energy and do something better with it. For other people, they'll go in closer to the danger and work at a higher level because they have more experience working with that energy. But you can do it at all these different levels. But we need to get out of relief, which a lot of people are getting sucked into right now. Even people that would never normally cause problems are getting sucked into the addictiveness of some relief right? You hear a lot of people when they're being interviewed saying, well, I'm sorry it had to come to this, but it had to come to this. These are people that are getting a little bit of a high from some relief, but it's not going to resolve anything. So the next level up from relief would be release. And release is a draining of excess energy in a much more beneficial way. So outside of the riots, I would say it's things like yoga and massage and, walks in nature and things like that offer a very beautiful release. Right now, what you're seeing in the riot areas during the day when it's safer is the community beautifully coming together and cleaning up. The reason why people spontaneously come out of their homes and go and just take a broom and a dustpan, even if it's not making a dent in the massive destruction because they have entire buildings gone, it provides a lot of release. It's very beautiful. It provides some flow to energy that is otherwise stuck in them, and it creates some bonding and some connection, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to do. To really bring this to resolution, we need to add another layer on top of that, and that is resolve. And resolve is when every single person has pent-up energy. We call it stress, right? There's energy that has not flown in the past. It gets stored in us as stress. And resolve is when more than one person, so a group of people, can take that pent-up energy and turn it into something bigger and more productive. Right? That is resolve. Now that energy is out of you and into the world and doing productive work. And that's the only thing that will ever fix all of this. And it doesn't matter in that regard it doesn't matter who's causing the destruction right now. That matters for, a lot of legal things and other reasons. But looking at it purely energetically, regardless of who's causing that, the community to be whole and productive and happy and successful is going to have to join their stress energies together and flow them in some kind of new productive work. And so anyone that's a leadership, that has any proclivity for leadership needs to be seeking those things that can provide that flow and start bringing people together in that. And here's just one last interesting thing about, the energetics of how energy flows. This is where it does matter who is causing the destruction. If it's local people in the city, a very small group of them, very small group. I bet it's a handful of people that are really responsible for all that, and then other people just kind of get in on it, but they wouldn't have ever done it if it weren't for a handful of people. If they are from within the community, then all of these leaders need to come from the community in order to get resolved, because that's how that energy works. The energy is contained within that community, and it needs to be resolved within that community. If these people, which there's some evidence that this is happening, if these people have come from somewhere else and taken advantage of a situation in Minnesota and wreaked havoc on our state, the leadership can come from anywhere. It should be from Minnesota, but it doesn't have to be from people in the more local communities to that. Energetically, that works, right? Energetically, anyone can step in as the leader and still get resolve for Minnesota, because these are outsiders. So the emotional center of that is much bigger than if those people come. The emotional center of the energy is much bigger than if those people come from within the city, in which case the emotional center of that is within the city, and that's why the resolve would have to occur from people within the city. They have a lot of energetic ties to the city. They have emotional connection to the businesses and the business owners and the neighbors and the trees and the the lakes and everything around. there's that energy is all centered in that community, and so it would have to come there. But if you've brought in outsiders, now the emotional center is far bigger and far encompasses far more people, and the leadership can come from further away. But either way, in either scenario, if the leadership is coming from local people to those areas, it will work either way. So that is the safest bet. That's the people who really, really, really need to be standing up right now in any capacity that they can stand up. The greatest gift that you can give another in times like this is your own grounding. It's giving them a path to ground, stand strongly in who they are, to know who they are, possibly for the first time ever, stand in it, and then use that strength to bring whatever stress energy is in them to resolution. But it starts with grounding. That is the greatest gift that we can give right now, all of us, to everyone around us. So I hope that people closer in the cities will see this, will feel it. It only takes a few people starting something, and other people feel it, and that energy feels good, and they're like, I want that. I want to be there. I want to be the grounded person that's resolving my energy. It actually feels better than releasing it, than just pure releasing it. So I hope that is helpful, and thank you for listening.